On the morning of September 29, 1935, a young Edinburgh woman named Susan Haines Johnson paused on a stone bridge above a ravine called Gardenholme Linn in the hills near Moffat in southern Scotland. Looking down at the stream, she saw a bundle lodged against the bank, and protruding from it what appeared to be a human arm. Police who climbed into the gully found more bundles wrapped in bedsheets, clothing, and newspaper. The remains had been taken apart with unusual care, and the features that normally identify a body had been deliberately removed. Whoever had done this understood precisely how the dead are named. The question facing investigators was stark. How do you identify victims when a skilled hand has erased everything that made them recognizable? The answer would help create modern forensic science. The story begins 4,000 miles away. Bukhtiyar Rustomji Ratanji Hakim was born in Bombay in 1899 into a Parsi family of comfortable standing. He qualified in medicine in India, served with the Indian Medical Service, and in the 1920s came to Britain to continue his studies, spending time in London and Edinburgh. He changed his name by deed poll, and by 1930 the newly styled Dr Buck Ruxton had taken over a general practice at 2 Dalton Square in Lancaster, a handsome Georgian house facing the town hall. He was, by most accounts, a popular doctor. Patients remembered him as charming and generous, a man who often waived his fees for families who could not pay. Behind the door of number 2, the picture was very different. Isabella Kerr had grown up in Edinburgh, where she managed a café. A brief early marriage to a Dutch seaman named Van S. had failed, and when she met the young doctor in the late 1920s, she took his name without ever legally marrying him. In Lancaster, she was known simply as Mrs. Ruxton, mother of the couple's 3 children. Helping her run the household was Mary Jane Rogerson, a nursemaid from nearby Morecambe, 20 years old in 1935 and devoted to the children. The marriage, in all but law, was violently unstable. Ruxton was consumed by jealousy, convinced without evidence that Isabella was unfaithful. Police were called to Dalton Square more than once, and Isabella twice left him. He reportedly told one officer that he would feel justified in killing a wife who deceived him. On Saturday, September 14, 1935, Isabella drove the family car to Blackpool. Her 2 sisters had come down from Edinburgh to see the famous illuminations, and the 3 women spent the evening together on the promenade. Isabella left Blackpool at around 11:30 that night for the drive home, and she is believed to have reached Dalton Square shortly after midnight. What happened inside the house in the hours that followed was reconstructed only later from bloodstains, from the testimony of witnesses, and finally from a confession in the killer's own hand. Neither Isabella Ruxton nor Mary Rogerson was ever seen alive again. The next morning, Ruxton began improvising. When the charwoman, Mrs. Agnes Oxley, arrived for work, she was turned away and told the family was on holiday. To Mary's parents, Ruxton said the young woman was pregnant, and that Isabella had taken her away to arrange matters quietly. To others, he said his wife had gone to Edinburgh or to Blackpool. A patient, Mrs. Mary Hampshire, was recruited to scrub the house and found the bathroom stained yellow and the stair carpet soiled. Ruxton gave her the carpets and one of his suits, both marked with blood, saying they were spoiled and of no use to him. Neighbors noticed fires burning in the yard behind the house. Ruxton's hand was bandaged. He said he had cut it opening a tin of peaches. Over the following days, the remains left Lancaster. They had been drained, dismembered, and wrapped in bed sheets, cotton wool, items of children's clothing, and sheets of newspaper, then packed into bundles small enough to carry. The evidence suggests Ruxton drove north along the road toward Edinburgh and dropped the bundles from the bridge into Gardenholme Linn, trusting the autumn stream to bury them. His journeys did not go unnoticed. On September 17th, his car struck a cyclist at Kendal, and a constable stopped him further along the road, noting his registration number and his agitation. It was a minor traffic matter, dutifully recorded in a police notebook. It would later place the doctor on the road between Lancaster and Moffat at exactly the wrong time. After Susan Johnson raised the alarm, officers of the Dumfriesshire Constabulary spent weeks combing the ravine and the banks of the River Annan below it. The count of recovered pieces eventually reached about 70, among them 2 heads, 2 torsos, and dozens of separated limbs and fragments. The condition of the remains defeated ordinary identification. Skin that might have carried a birthmark or a scar had been cut away. A number of teeth had been drawn, and the fingertips were damaged. So thorough was the mutilation that examiners at first could not even agree on the sexes of the dead, and early newspaper reports confidently described a man and a woman. The killer had anticipated every conventional method the police might use. He had not anticipated the newspaper he wrapped them in. Among the sodden wrappings, detectives found pages of the Sunday Graphic dated September 15, 1935. It was no ordinary copy. The pages came from a special slip edition, printed with photographs of the Morecambe Carnival and sold only in the Morecambe and Lancaster district. A national mystery suddenly had a local address. Scottish detectives contacted the Lancaster Borough Police, who knew that a young woman named Mary Rogerson had been reported missing, along with the wife of a doctor on Dalton Square. The clothing sealed the link. Mary's stepmother recognized a blouse by a patch she had sewn under the arm, and a pair of child's rompers was traced to a family friend who had passed them on for the Ruxton children. The bundles in the ravine had come from one house. The remains were taken to the anatomy department of the University of Edinburgh, where an extraordinary team assembled. Professor John Glaister of Glasgow, the anatomist Professor James Cooper Brash, and colleagues including Sidney Smith and Gilbert Miller washed, preserved, and catalogued every fragment, then began the slow work of reassembling two human beings. The press called it the Jigsaw murders. The scientists soon noticed something the killer had never intended to tell them. The mutilation was not random. Isabella had prominent teeth and they were gone. Mary had a squint and the eyes were missing. Where each woman had carried a birthmark or an old scar, the tissue at exactly that place had been removed. The absences matched the women like a photographic negative, and the anatomical skill on display pointed to a killer trained in medicine. Brash then produced the image that made the case famous. A studio portrait existed of Isabella wearing a diamante tiara, taken in happier years. Brash photographed the larger of the two skulls at the same angle and scale, and laid one transparent image over the other. Brow, jaw, cheekbones, and the sockets of the eyes aligned. The composite, presented at trial, is widely regarded as the first use of photographic superimposition in a British murder case. The second body spoke through a different science. Detective Lieutenant Bertie Hammond of the Glasgow Police recovered fingerprints from the surviving skin of one hand, and matched them to prints left on bottles, dishes, and furniture at 2 Dalton Square. The younger of the two bodies had been, in life, Mary Jane Rogerson. One question remained. When had the bodies entered the ravine? The answer came from an unexpected witness, the blowfly. Maggots were collected from the remains and sent to Alexander Mearns at the University of Glasgow, who identified them as the larvae of the common bluebottle and estimated their age at 12 to 14 days. Counting backwards from their collection, the bundles had been lying in Gardenholme Linn since about the middle of September, precisely when Isabella Ruxton and Mary Rogerson had vanished from Lancaster. It was one of the earliest uses of insect evidence in a British murder investigation, and it quietly closed the window through which any alternative story might have escaped. Buck Ruxton was arrested on October 13, 1935, and charged first with the murder of Mary Rogerson, then with that of his wife. His trial opened at Manchester Assizes on March 2, 1936, before Mr. Justice Singleton, with the celebrated Norman Burkett leading the defense. The prosecution called more than 100 witnesses across 11 days, walking the jury from the blood-stained staircase at Dalton Square to the superimposed skull from Edinburgh. Burkett could do little against the weight of it, and Ruxton's excitable performance in the witness box helped him not at all. On March 13th, the jury retired and returned in about an hour, guilty of the murder of Isabella. Ruxton was sentenced to death, and the charge concerning Mary Rogerson was left on the file, never tried. The verdict divided the town that had liked its doctor. A petition for a reprieve gathered signatures reportedly numbering around 10,000, many of them from Lancaster patients he had treated for nothing. The Court of Criminal Appeal dismissed his case in late April, and on May 12, 1936, Buck Ruxton was hanged at Strangeways Prison in Manchester. The following Sunday, the News of the World published a short confession in his handwriting, dated October 14, 1935, the day after his arrest. In it, he admitted killing Isabella in a rage over his suspicions and killing Mary Rogerson because she had witnessed it. He had left the sealed document with the newspaper to be opened only in the event of his execution. In Lancaster, children skipped to a new rhyme set to the tune of a popular song. Red stains on the carpet, red stains on the knife, oh, Dr. Buck Ruxton, you murdered your wife. It was a cruel verse, but it was the public record forming in real time. The scientific record followed in 1937 when Glaister and Brash published their monograph on the case, a book still cited as a founding text of forensic anthropology. The techniques rehearsed on those two bodies, superimposition, entomology, the reading of deliberate mutilation, became standard tools of identification around the world. The bath from Dalton Square reportedly spent years afterwards as a drinking trough for police horses. And the stone bridge still stands above Gardenholme Linn, where a question was once asked of two nameless bodies, and where patient science answered with their names.